Bias. Bias never changes. It was in our childhoods where we started to form our opinions. We deemed some things our favorites and would defend what we loved in the playground wars. As we grew older, some of those tastes would expand into biases. We would develop friendship off these biases, and we would find groups that could expand our knowledge of these biases. Of course, sometimes our biases would get us in trouble. Similar to the playground wars of yore, we would find new battles to wage. The pages of YouTube and Reddit, among other places, became our battlefield. Here, we would shun others and refuse to see the flaws of our arguments. And we would also shun others who we deemed to have biases on what they were talking about. After all, they are blind and cannot look past what they are talking about objectively. Today, I will be telling you a story about one of those biases. But it won't be a bad story. No, on the contrary. It will be a story of how bias brought me home. A place I was comfortable. Because biases never change. Hello YouTube, and welcome to this episode of Game Talk. And if you couldn't guess from the opening, this episode is about bias. Specifically, my bias. And no, it's not my bias on Fallout, although Fallout is very important in this bias story, but we'll get to that in a bit. No, instead, my bias is actually about a certain city. The city that I grew up in. I think it's the best city in the world. The city of Boston. Yep, I was born and bred in Boston. From Faneuil Hall to the Prudential Center, Southie, Castle Island. Heck, I practically lived in the Museum of Science and New England Aquarium some summers when I was a kid. I love this city, and it will always be a part of who I am. And then I moved. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Though bias is the main point of this video, it wouldn't matter if I wasn't playing the game to begin with. So I think I'll tell you a bit about my history with the series. It all started in about mid-2009. I was hanging out at a friend's house. My friend had Fallout 3 on the PC. He was exploring Megaton, and I just remembered that that game looked amazing. I love post-apocalyptic content, and the game looked like it was right down my alley. So, I went and got the game on the 360. The game was amazing. I got all the DLC for it, and often went for lore dives. Eventually, I got as much as I could out of the game alone. I started to look into the history of the franchise. And that's how I learned just how different Fallout 1 and 2 were. And I wanted to play them. So, just like when I played Fallout 3, I got the games and dove into their lore. I honestly don't know if this was the best idea. The more I dove, the more similar Fallout 3's story felt to them. It started to feel like Fallout 3's story was just a rehash of the first two games put on the East Coast. While I still thought Bethesda made a great game, I also feel like they didn't put any effort in the main story. And I'm not saying Bethesda couldn't create good stories. If you look at any of the Elder Scrolls games, you'll be able to see that. In fact, you don't even need to go past Fallout 3. Just about any side quest in that game is amazing. I mean, for God's sakes, there was a side quest that made me feel for a cannibal. If you can do that, you have amazing storytelling skills. And don't even get me started on the DLC. There was only one DLC without a good story, honestly. Mothership Zeta. And to be quite frankly, that was just a power trip, and it succeeded in that. But anyways, let's move on to the next part. When Fallout New Vegas came out, it was exactly what I wanted it to be. A game that took the lore of the world and pushed it forward. And yes, it probably helped that it was developed by a team who had many members on it who worked on the original games. I won't spend too long on this, because I've spent enough time doing some setup. But it was a little before this time that I went off to college. I went to college in Connecticut. That was far enough away from home that I could truly say I was away, but close enough that if I really wanted to, I could go home at the flip of a dime. In fact, one time I was so homesick, I actually decided to get a 5 a.m. train home. But that's not so important. It's just kind of there to set up where I was in my life at the time. Soon after that, we would have a new hope for a new Fallout game. It was around November 2013, and I'm betting at this point there are two groups of people watching this. Those who think there was nothing special about that time in regards to Fallout 4, And those who are there for Survivor 2299. And this is where my bias began. That's right. For those of us who remember it, there was a website that popped up. The Survivor 2299 website. It had a Morse code message, and a lot of evidence that it was for a new Fallout game by Bethesda. There was also evidence, both from the website and off of it, that the game would be based in Boston. By this point, I was really hoping for a new Fallout game. The idea that we could be getting a new game, and for it to be based in my hometown? I was psyched. And that wasn't exactly the best thing. You see, the website was soon revealed to be a fake. That fact hit me hard. Not only was the hope that the game being in my hometown shattered, but the hope for that forced me not to be critical of what was going on. You see, there were facts right in front of my face, fact that proved the website was a fake, and I treated it as just a possibility. It wasn't a fact that the website wasn't real. There was only a chance. And I clung to it. And when it got taken down, it sucked. But that's the thing about hope. Just because it's small, it doesn't mean it's gone. And from there, it can grow. And this is starting to sound like Danganronpa. And in 2015, my hope did grow when Bethesda put out this trailer.
But the cry.
With the world poised on the brink of war, Vault-Tec is reporting a record number.
But me.
Folks, it seems we've got some breaking news. Stand by.
It's all over. No, I'm trying to forget about how much I care for you.
We seem to have lost contact with our affiliate stations. Stand by. We do have coming in confirmed reports of nuclear detonation.
My God. Our soldiers were right. War never changes.
Yep, right before E3 2015, the trailer for Fallout 4 dropped. And then Bethesda had their conference. It was on June 14th, 2015 that Bethesda officially revealed Fallout 4. And that was where my bias for Fallout 4 begins. Directly. They announced a game I was truly looking forward to. They were putting it in my hometown. And to top it all off, they announced it on my birthday. I know it technically wasn't, but because of all this, the game felt like it was made specifically for me. And because of that, this game really means a lot to me. Even with the announcements about the fact that there was a voice protagonist, that didn't scare me. Even if I thought it wasn't the right direction for the series to take. And then the game came out. At this time, I was back at college. I was nearing the end of it, and I was feeling homesick again. Fallout 4 took me from college all the way back home to Boston. I could explore my hometown again. Sure, it looked different, but for someone away from home feeling homesick, it felt just enough like home to make me happy. And honestly, the game wasn't perfect. The fact that there was a voice protagonist meant that a lot of the options I would have loved had to be stripped from the game. By making it so weapons couldn't break, they took out a huge tactical aspect of the series that I loved. By taking out Karma, none of my actions not directly tied to the main story felt like they held any weight. But it didn't matter. Playing this game brought me home, and it does the same even when I play it today. It's because of my bias for this game that allows me to overlook these flaws and consider it to be one of my favorite games. And there you have it. the reason I think bias is not always a bad thing. Sure, there can be times that it is, but if you love something for completely arbitrary reasons, that isn't a bad thing. But this is Game Talk, not Game Listen Me Talk. Let me know what you think. And if you have any biases that make a game great for you, let me know down in the comments below. Don't worry, I won't use my biases to judge you. And if you liked the video, you should hit that like button there. And if you want to see more, the subscribe button is down there as well. And until next time, game on.